These are Muslim values. These are Canadian values.
The words of that radical Islam were disgusting, absolutely abhorrent, but it did not meet the threshold of proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
I can appreciate they're a little sensitive to the truth. At the end of the day, Madam Speaker, this has no infringement on the freedoms of religion, and the member knows that. Why won't he say it?
That particular member just spews hatred, spews disgust. He impugns the integrity of every one of my Conservative colleagues.
Who cares?
Oh, yeah.
Resuming debate, the honourable member for Brantford, Six Nations. Brantford, Brent North, Six Nations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Always a pleasure to rise on behalf of the good people of Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations. And I too share many of the concerns of my colleague who just spoke. We have seen firsthand, in my respectful opinion, a masterclass of liberal hypocrisy. On full display yesterday during question period, when the member who is a sitting Liberal member of committee from Duvel, Lachine, LaSalle, essentially said as follows: Mr. Speaker, after weeks of Conservative delays, the Justice Committee finally resumed its work on the Combating Hate Act, and we will continue that work on Thursday, meaning today. Will the Conservatives make sure bail reform is passed before Christmas? Could the minister speak to the importance of keeping this work moving so Canadians can have these important justice reforms take place? Clearly, a question posed by the Secretary of State, who responded in turn by saying, Mr. Speaker, Canadians have been clear that they want stronger protections in the face of rising hate, and they want meaningful bail reform. After weeks of Conservative delay tactics and stalling in committees, I am really happy to see that they might move forward on the combating hate crime legislation on Thursday. So, to much my surprise and the surprise of all of my colleagues, I get to the office this morning at 8:30, look at my P9 inbox, and there is a message from the clerk of the Justice Committee announcing that today's important meeting was cancelled. Cancelled by the Liberal chair, probably as a result of the absolute split in that Liberal caucus as to how to properly deal with this particular religious exemption defense. At no time, Madam Speaker, did this Liberal government ever project any intention of removing that religious exemption. So behind closed doors over the past weekend, they approached the Bloc Québécois member who has been steadfast in his position that that particular exemption needed to be removed. They worked out a deal that they would support that particular amendment, largely if the Bloc Québécois would continue to support the eventual passage of Bill C-9. Very, very dangerous, hypocrisy at its finest. We have experienced, as the former member, my colleague, has indicated, Madam Speaker, we've had abrupt cancellations of meetings. We've had abrupt endings of meetings. We've allocated resources to go to midnight this past Tuesday, abruptly ended at 5:30 as a result of religious leaders who are following this, not only locally, following this right across Canada. I too am receiving a lot of feedback of expressed concerns about what this Liberal government is prepared to do, and they abruptly adjourned. So I would only surmise that there is a lot of internal conflict between the Justice Committee and the direction from the PMO on this particular issue. So at the heart of the Bloc Québécois amendment This is something that they tried to pass through a couple of years ago, did not make it past first reading. They refer to an incident of a radical iman from Quebec in October of 2023 who gave a speech at a pro-Palestinian rally where he said, quote, "Allah, take care of these Zionist aggressors. Allah, take care of the enemies of the people of Gaza. Allah, identify them all, then exterminate them, and don't spare any of them." That is what they are relying upon. And of course, and I will explain further in my speech, ultimately, the prosecution service in the province of Quebec declined to proceed. Now, today in the National Post, I read a very interesting article from Christine Van Gen, one of the top constitutional lawyers in this country, part of the Canadian Constitution Foundation. And the title of the article, Madam Speaker, "Changes to Bill C-9 aren't combating hate, they're criminalizing faith." She says, to secure Bloc Québécois support for its censorious Bill C-9, the Liberals have reportedly agreed to a troubling trade, removing the long-standing religious defense from Canada's hate speech laws. This would be a mistake. Throughout the Justice Committee's hearings, Bloc MPs fixated on this defense. Their central example, repeated to nearly every witness, was that Iman example I referred to. These comments were rightly condemned. They are grotesque. Complaints about them were investigated, and the RCMP prepared a report. It was reviewed by 3 Crown prosecutors who concluded that no charges were warranted. As Quebec's Director of Criminal and Penal Prosecutions put it, the evidence does not establish beyond a reasonable doubt that the words spoken constitute incitement to hatred against an identifiable group under Section 319 of the Criminal Code. She says, one may argue that Zionist was just code for Jews. One may also believe that praying for death is morally abhorrent, but the decision not to charge Chikari turned on the basic threshold of incitement to hatred, not on the religious defense under Section 319. That's a very important distinction that the Bloc never repeats, that the Liberal government has never cited. There was no indication for the prosecution service that the religious defense was an impediment to prosecute or was even considered. Logically speaking, Madam Speaker, it is also true that anyone who thinks Chikari was not charged because of the religious defense must also believe that his speech was given in good faith and therefore was reasonable and delivered without malicious intent. She says further, even if it had involved the defense, one inflammatory prayer at a political rally is not a justification for dismantling a safeguard that protects millions of Canadians from state intrusion into matters of faith. That's what this Liberal government continues to do and has done not only in this particular Parliament, but in the 44th. The religious defense has also been essential to the constitutionality of the hate speech prohibition itself. In the Supreme Court decision in Keegstra, they wrote that the offense is a minimal impairment on the right of freedom of expression, in part because of the presence of the Section 319 sub 3 defenses. The courts upheld the law because the religious exemption exists. Remove it, and the constitutional floor collapses. But even beyond constitutional risk, removing the defense is a profound moral and civil liberties mistake. We should not want, let alone empower, prosecutors to criminalize any form of prayer. Religious texts across traditions contain pleas for justice against enemies. metaphors for divine retribution, and expressions of anguish, symbolism, and cosmic struggle. This is not the realm of the police. If the state begins parsing palms line by line in a courtroom, then we have forgotten why the Charter exists at all. Hear, hear. And I see my time is fastly coming to an end. All the more reason for everyone in this House to support our motion to ensure that every major stakeholder who wishes to express an opinion to defend the religious expression that we have in this Charter needs to be heard. If the Liberals won't do it on their own, we are asking collectively this House to do that. Thank you.
Commentaire, the Honourable Member for Peace River, Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member colleague for that speech. It was a great speech. I know I'm part of the Christian community, and with many Christians across Canada are concerned about, we've talked about the threats that it really poses to, the very Bible itself. Do Christians, do they need to be concerned about this legislation? Does it really threaten the Bible and free speech in Canada?
The Honourable Member for Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
They should be very afraid. Every faith leader should be very afraid as to what this Liberal government, with the support of the Bloc Québécois, wishes to do. As I indicated, religious freedom is under attack at the hands of this Liberal government. So absolutely, they need to speak out loud and clear. Those members of the religious organizations across this country in Liberal-held ridings, in bloc ridings, need to reach out to their members to express very, very clearly they do not support this attack on religious freedom.
The Commons, the Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, so thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm disappointed in the Conservative Party, in particular a member who has been involved in the judicial system to plant fear in the minds of Canadians. And that's all the Conservative Party of Canada is doing today, Madam Speaker. It's shameful. The member knows full well that this is not an infringement on the freedom of religion. And if he had an ounce of integrity, he would indicate very clearly that the pastors, preachers, imams have nothing to fear.
I have a point of order from the Honourable Member for Sherwood Park, Saskatchewan.
The comments made were clearly unparliamentary. I don't think I need to explain why.
There was a question. It wasn't an accusation. The Honourable Member would perhaps wish to reword his question.
Madam Speaker, I can appreciate they're a little sensitive to the truth. At the end of the day, Madam Speaker, this has no infringements on the freedoms of religion. And the member knows that. Why won't he say it?
The Honourable Member for Brantford, Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
That particular member just spews hatred, spews disgust. He impugns the integrity of every one of my Conservative colleagues. And I am so disgusted in that particular framing of the question and the content of that question, I'm not even going to respond, Madam Speaker, because it's just not worthy of it.
Resuming debate.
Oh, yeah.
So that's it, Aaron. Like, share, subscribe. I really would appreciate your subscription. We're not going to try to sell you anything here. I'm not going to try to sell you a stupid sticker. Let's just learn about Canadian federal politics. That's it. Let's save our country. There's still time left. That's it. Thank you all very much for watching. We'll catch you in the next video. Again, I appreciate everybody that does subscribe and just watching the video. Share this with somebody if you really enjoyed it. We'll catch you in the next one. Ciao for now.
Anytime you hear Mark Carney talking about trade with the US or tariffs on Canadian exports, you should just say, who cares, change the channel, and tune him out, because that was his message to you. So you know what, Mark Carney, this part's especially for you. On behalf of the millions of Canadians you've let down and insulted, every time you open your mouth in Parliament, our message to you, who cares?